Michael Carrick is set to become the interim manager of Manchester United, and I think many people aren't too sure what he's all about. So in today's video, we will be talking about him and why his tactics are actually quite interesting. Before I do begin, if you're a United fan, please do hit the subscribe and like button as well. We'll be covering you under Carrick for the rest of the season, but let's get on with the video. The out of possession principles of a Michael Carrick side are very, very interesting. And as you can see, I've got Arsenal as the team, as the opposition, as they are the best, I think, defending in a 4-4-2, and I think most of the teams in the Premier League do operate in a defensive 4-4-2 shape, and it's up to teams to find a way around that, whether that's through the sides or whether that's through the middle. And one thing you can notice with the Michael Carrick side is the use of the left back. The left back doesn't stay in the back four, but is pushed high and wide to occupy these zones, which means there's space inside for the left winger that I think should be Cunha, because I think he's best in those inside spaces, to operate in this half space and even drop at times to help with the build up here. You've got that freedom and responsibility as the inside forward, as the left winger, to roam and own this area of the pitch, to create overloads. It's all about creating overloads on different areas in the pitch. And I think Dorgu as well is somebody that's much better higher up the pitch, because I don't think he's one of the best in terms of build up. It then allows for the wide centre half, which is Martinez, to occupy these areas, and then Manchester United can play. And it's up to Casemiro, if the ball is shifted here, for these triangles and these overloads to be created as much as possible, whether that's Cunha dropping in here into these pockets, and to sort of move your opponents around in terms of their defense. If they're going to press you in there, you want to have as many options to choose from as the player on the ball, and that's what I really like about Carrick's system. But it's not just that. Say that the game sort of means that somebody like Maguire's on the ball. If Mainu drops into this area, a back four can be created in the build-up, and then the likes of Bruno Fernandes, who I've got in the 10 position, can drop in to create a numerical advantage this way. And you can already see the sort of words I'm using, numerical advantages, because that's really important, especially in the Premier League and especially against rigid 4-4-2 pressing structures. And I feel as though United have the personnel, like Fernandes, if he was to start in the 10 position, to drop in, and then you've got a back four like this. We know how good Mainu is on the ball to circulate it like this. It also means, say the centre back has the ball, Maguire, Dalot can push higher, Fernandes can also drop in there. And it's just all about these different rotations to progress the ball, because that's what Manchester United, in my opinion, has struggled with in terms of having the right numbers to create overloads at the back. You know, it's all about moving that ball as quickly as possible. But it's not just all about short play into the centre back or into the left centre half. It is also really important to utilise the long ball, and we see a lot of the top teams utilise the front ball as much as possible. And Senna Lamens will have the opportunity at times to play those longer balls into these sort of areas like here. These areas there where you see the little arrow, Senna Lamens can play these balls into these zones for an Mbeumo to run into, because these little spaces there, they're open. It's open, you can utilize it, and you can make the most of it. So it's really going to be interesting to see how Manchester United use that long ball whenever they're given the opportunity to do so. But let's say the ball is higher up the pitch. Let's move everyone a little bit backwards and say Arsenal. And now in this sort of shape further back, they've been pushed back. Then, you know, Carrick doesn't mind something that we just saw for Chelsea in their cup game against Charlton, a box four. And you can see Cunha, this is the left winger, inside here to occupy these spaces with Fernandes. So you've essentially got four in there who are really good on the ball that can suffocate the opposition, and you can create those sort of overloads. Fernandes is in there, Cunha's in there, so these balls can be circulated to sort of move your opposition around as well, which is always really interesting. There's also onus on the left winger to make these underlaps, to also go on the overlap as well. But ultimately, the whole goal is to have players in positions which they're comfortable in. The left back stays at left back, swinging these early crosses in, and Carrick at Middlesbrough had this philosophy of early crosses from the half spaces, whether it's Cunha into these zones or if it's Dorgu into these zones, for Latte Laf to score, to head in. It's all about quick deliveries, and when the striker makes that first dart in between these spaces, you as a fullback or as a cam need to find these sort of passes and these sort of balls into the box, and it's just all about that. And say if the ball was also on this side of the pitch, you see Mbeumo someone like Bruno Fernandes can make those overlaps, can drop into the right back position. You know, it is, again, triangles, as much triangles as possible, as much connections as possible, as you try and move your opposition around and create chances. So the players at Manchester United need to know when to create these overloads, when to understand that an overload is open. And look, if you're right back, you're going to be in a position where you're best. Dalot isn't going to be asked to come inside as much. He'll be asked, you do your overlaps, you do the movements you feel are comfortable, you pass it off to the more technical players in and around you. Same with Dorgu. Whip the balls in, hold the width though, and we'll have Cunha occupy these areas in which he is best as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see Manchester United's sort of connections on the pitch, the box four when they're higher up the pitch, sort of the wingers inside and the fullbacks pushing high in the build-up, the three at the back. Sometimes the midfielders will drop in to make it a four, meaning Dalot can go a bit higher as well. It's going to be lots of movement, lots of rotations, lots of sort of, you've got to be quick on your feet as well, because ultimately that's only going to confuse the opposition if you're quicker, and it's sort of muscle memory. And I think Manchester United have the players. You can already see the players I've put into this shape. That's what I think United's best lineup is. You could have Euro in here. You could have Mount in the 10 position instead of Fernandes and drop Fernandes deeper next to Mainu or next to Casemiro. There is options. There is options for this Manchester United side, and I've not forgot Ahmad as well and his influence. He can also operate in certain spaces as well where he's dangerous on this side. Even Mbeumo can be moved over to the left. Look, United have the players to be really dangerous, but let's now get into out of possession principles for Carrick. So in terms of the out of possession principles, it's not really that difficult. As soon as the opposition, as you can see, you've got Saliba on the ball, move the ball here, it's on the winger to go in and press onto the other centre half. And then likes of Fernandes, Casemiro, Mainu should then press on to the other three players. It's all about just jumping on your man as quickly as possible, understanding the sort of areas in which the opposition can pick you out. And also someone like Sesko's got to be really on it in terms of being that first line of the press, moving with the movement of the ball. It can be quite hard in terms of always shifting, but it's really important, so it allows time for your wingers like Cunha to drop on to your opposition as quickly as possible and make the squeeze, because ultimately you're only going to defeat these top teams if you squeeze them as quickly as possible, because as soon as you allow them enough time on the ball to find the spaces, to see the movement, then you're dead. And I think Michael Carrick's out of possession principles is just much on your wingers being the ones to win the balls. You know, most of the statistics you'll see about a Carrick side is that the wingers have the high turnovers. They're the ones that have got the responsibility to win the ball back as much as possible in those higher areas. And I think someone like Mbeumo and Cunha, with their experience at teams that are so out of possession reliant, like Wolves and Brentford, they will be able to understand those principles very, very easily. And of course, Ahmad and Mount are very hard-working players as well. If they were to put onto the left-hand side, you can always have Cunha up front, Sesko off, move Mbeumo to this side if it's a certain opponent, and then have a really front three who are incredible at pressing in that first phase. But ultimately, you know, Carrick's going to be a really interesting acquisition for Manchester United. I think he has a lot of qualities. He's quite underrated, but let's see how he does with this version of Manchester United.